With more than 25 years of experience working as a school psychologist and a neuropsychologist, I have found that families and patients commonly have the same questions. Questions about how the brain works and how the diagnostic system works, and questions and frustrations about how the special education system works and how to get a child help if they're struggling in school. So that's what these presentations will be about. We're going to have one today on the diagnostic system and the brain. Then we'll have a second that focuses on the special education systems and how to navigate those and get children support when they're struggling in school. The format is as follows. I've asked patients of mine, former patients of mine, to write down questions or bring forth concepts that they found valuable during their evaluation process. And I will review those and answer those or respond to those here today. So I've said over and over again that the diagnostic system that's based on symptom presentation is fundamentally broken, and it is. But we enter into a dilemma because at the end of the day, in order for Johnny, who has a brain that's developed and functioning differently, not bad, not unintelligent, not a bad human being at all. I'm not saying anything negative. I'm speaking in purely brain terms, neurological terms. If Johnny's brain is developed differently, and therefore he learns differently, he thinks differently, he socializes differently, he moves differently. If any of those are occurring, then the system that we currently have says, well, you need to put a pathological label on that. You need to diagnose something so we can get Johnny those tools. This is where the breakdown occurs because brains that operate differently and therefore have different behaviors and different experiences shouldn't be assumed to be pathological. I had mentioned that the book we choose our diagnoses from contains more than 500 different ways to tell somebody there's something wrong with them. And literally in the title of the book is mental illness. Why are we doing that? I am not suggesting for one moment that there aren't people that have disruptions to their brain development and brain functioning that are really darn catastrophic and lifelong. And I'm not trying to minimize that or suggest that's not existent. And in many cases, the term will fit those experiences and that is then effective. So I'm not trying to minimize the experience of anyone, but I'm trying to get us back to the reality that the experience can exist without a brain. And therefore, when we create a system where you have to say something's wrong for an individual to get new tools, effort is always expected. That never leaves the equation of success. Effort has to be there. We're going to expect effort. We're going to expect good behaviors, following the rules and that sort of thing. But if we're not seeing those things, we need to understand the source so we can bring to the table the right tools to benefit everyone. What do we need to do to support changing how this brain is functioning so that the behavior and the experience changes? So as an example, if someone's struggling with reading, I can't say as a neuropsychologist, hey school, Jane's struggling with her reading. You guys are seeing it, right? So can we just jump in there and do some things? Let's sit down and talk and let's figure out what do we do to help this awesome human being? What's available out there? What curriculums, what interventions, what accommodations? We all good? If we could do that, everything would be fine, but we can't do that. What happens is Janie's brain is developed differently as it relates to learning sounds and sound symbol relationships, and it's impacting the way she reads and writes. The curriculums built for everyone else haven't worked for her. But in order to get any tools, to bring any tools to the table, Jane has to have a name put next to her. Mom has to ask the school to evaluate, or the school has to evaluate, or she has to go get a private evaluation. And somebody in my field has to say, Jane has dyslexia and dysgraphia, reading and writing. So school, pivot, let's do it differently. That's not the system we want, because this is a system that sets it up to where anything and everything that's different is negative. It's pathological. It's considered a disorder. Here again, I'm not saying there aren't people that take great pride in being neurodivergent and even in the word, and you should, because the word just reflects a brain that's different. So I don't mean to offend anyone that takes great pride in being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder or the fact that they have dyslexia and they are at the very top of the business world, because that commonly happens. Those who have brains that are built differently, developed differently, oftentimes have skills that are vastly superior to those that just are in the middle, the neurotypical cohort. But at the same time, when your brain has developed and it functions differently, it might require different tools to get you to success. You may learn to read differently. Doesn't mean you can't read, doesn't mean you don't want to read. When someone's diagnosed with dyslexia, it doesn't mean they're never going to read. It doesn't mean B's and D's are reversed. It means none of that. It's just a word that leads us to a set of tools that parents should pick from. So this diagnostic system presents this dilemma where I have to tell parents, we have to get to a point where we're going to use a word, if it's needed, to get your child the services they need. And we'll establish that need through our evaluation. So in that system, it's difficult for parents because, again, they have to walk away with a word that historically has implied potentially something negative. I think we're moving into this realm where we're seeing some of these things for what they really are. And they can be unbelievably positive and give you superpowers. For those that are neurodivergent, it can be absolutely, and it is a superpower. It can be super amazing and super frustrating because in the world built for Honda brains, the neurodivergent are Ferraris. These are not broken vehicles, damaged, disordered, ill. I'm going to say that again. So being neurodivergent can be unbelievably amazing and it can be unbelievably frustrating because what happens is the world is built for those in the middle. I call these the Hondas. Teaching curriculums, they're Honda curriculums. Our behavioral expectation, Honda. How people socialize, you should do it like a Honda. So anyone that's outside of the Honda, somehow it's implied that's pathological, and I disagree. Those who are neurodivergent are the Ferraris of the world. Is a Ferrari a bad vehicle? Is it broken? Is it disordered? Absolutely not. But it's absolutely different. The Ferrari requires a different owner's manual than the Honda. And the owner's manual is what we do to get to success. So that's what this is about. In a Honda world, if you're a Ferrari, it gives you unbelievable abilities, but it can also be unbelievably frustrating. And it can lead you to human experiences that are unnecessarily negative because the Honda world says the Honda way is the right way. Everything else requires a diagnosis. Until we get rid of that system and we pivot to going from the brain, what's occurring for this individual, to how do we help them, and then figure out, do we need to call it something to get that help? So this is the broken system. Because until we get to a place where if you're different than the majority, if your brain has developed and functions differently, thereby leading you to different ways of learning or thinking or socializing and different experiences, we don't go immediately to something's wrong with you. We say, all right, what is our development? What is our brain doing? How does that impact how we learn, how we socialize, how we communicate? And knowing those two things, what do we do to support the idea of when this person puts forth effort, they achieve success? Instead of saying, anything outside of here, anything that's not Honda is disabled, disordered, has a disability. That is the system that's broken, and that is really the foundation of understanding exceptional. To critically examine this system, to identify ways to potentially change it so that we can support the human experience for everyone. Keeping in mind that none of this is about excusing behavior. It's not about making life super easy. It's absolutely about bringing new tools to the table to support the Ferraris of the world. The Ferrari has a very different owner's manual. You have to maintain and work on a Ferrari using different tools and different methods than you do the Honda. So if you're a Ferrari in a Honda world, your human experience can be disruptive and it can be negative, and we need to stop that. And the diagnostic system that we have today reinforces that reality. That needs to stop.